You're a little early there, Jacob.
Hey, it's with the delay. It is what it is. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Engineers That Filters podcast, episode 174. I'm your host, Jacob Thompson. This night, I'm drinking a Bauhaus short pants. I saw this at the liquor store, and I'm like, ooh, I'm wearing short pants right now. And I love Bauhaus, so it's time to get it.
And you're actually drinking.
Mm-hmm.
That's the big news.
I got a mini fridge in the basement here, so I don't have to walk upstairs to get some cold bevs.
You got some G Fuel in there, too?
Oh, yeah. Actually, I'm a Gatorade boy. I like the original stuff. Get this G Fuel business out of here.
Interesting. What about
Also,
Fast Twitch?
Dayton, I don't do energy drinks. You're not gonna get me on the train.
I had a fast twitch today,
Dude. Gabe,
like
Gabe
an hour ago.
Dude,
I'm fucking wired.
He's freaking hooked on them.
Well, I got a whole case for free, so now I'm like,
Oh, you're still working through those?
I still haven't gone through the case. Like, it's still not worth it for me to buy them, but
yeah,
they were really nice to have.
Who owns Fast Twitch?
Gatorade.
Oh, okay. So they have two separate SKUs?
It's like Gatorade Fast Twitch, or one of them's a subtitle. I think it's Fast Twitch by Gatorade.
But they have Fast Twitch and they have G Fuel?
No. G Fuel.
G Fuel isn't Gatorade.
Yeah,
that's its own.
What? That's what the G stand for.
The G is
gamer.
for gamer.
G Fuel Mountain Dew.
No, I don't think
I
so.
don't
Because
think
Mountain Dew
there
has
is.
their own energy drinks.
Are you guys sure? This whole time I
No,
thought
G
G Fuel
is
was
for
Gatorade.
gamer, dude. G is
Yeah.
for gamer.
My God. All right, I'm looking this up. Joseph, what do you got?
Okay, I'm Joseph, and I've got Hazy Hearted IPA tonight.
Okay.
That's
that
a good
was
one.
Gifted to me for tuning a coworker's skis like 3 months ago now. So he has just been very late on his payment, and he did not pay with interest.
Damn.
Nice.
But it's good.
Can't complain.
Well, I'm Gabe, and I'm just doing the classic Northeast. Can't go wrong with it.
Nice. Solid beer, I guess. I've never had it, but it looks good.
You might have when you visited, but
I kind of
if you don't remember it, that's okay. It's like it's a cheap beer, but it's a top cheap beer. Does that make sense? Yeah.
All right, Jacob, what's the verdict?
Well, you go and then I'll
All right. Well, I'm Dayton. I'm drinking Oberon because I think today or is it yesterday is the solstice.
Yesterday was.
Yesterday was the solstice, so we're officially into summer now. So.
Oh God.
Days are getting shorter now.
Yep.
Yikes.
Drive up to winter.
All right, here's the sitch. G Fuel is manufactured by Gamma Labs, who is owned by a guy named Clifford Morgan. And he has a LinkedIn page that says, "My name is Clifford Morgan, and I am the founder and chief executive officer of Gamma Labs /G Fuel. Founded in 2004, Gamma Labs started as a sports nutrition company focused on providing professional athletes with an all-natural performance-enhancing supplement." So just some fucking guy. Just some fucking rich guy.
Yeah, it's
This
not
whole
Mr.
time-
Gatorade.
I thought it was Gatorade the whole time.
Who's grifted himself into the gamer industry.
Honestly.
Yeah.
Well, some of the people he sponsors are not the best. We don't have to get into that right now. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. This is the Engineers That Filters podcast, where every other week the four of us get together and talk about what's on our minds. If you like our show, we post every other Monday on YouTube, podcast services. You can also follow us on Twitch, where we live stream these on Thursday nights, and we also do some gaming in the off week. So check us out. All the links are in the description below. But let's start how we always do with a little bit of recap. How you guys doing, Joseph? I feel like we lived together. I haven't seen you in forever. What's going on with you?
We talked last night while you were making your overnight oats. What are you talking?
Barely with our schedules. We don't really
wasn't
line up a
enough
lot.
for you.
I'm just saying, me and Joseph don't get to see each other that much.
Well, since it's on my mind and otherwise I'll forget. See what it might have been 2 weeks ago. Yeah, probably Saturday before last. When hung out with a coworker, got a bite to eat at this vegan restaurant that I've told you guys about before. Anyway, because he's vegan too. He recently switched back to being vegan. Long story, not important. But they serve Oberon on tap, and I was like, hell yeah, I'm gonna get an Oberon. And I order it, and I look at it, I'm like, that's not an Oberon. And I take a sip, I'm like, that's definitely not Oberon. Like, I know what it looks like, I know what it tastes like.
Mm-hmm.
And waitress came back, like, how's everything going? I was like, I hate to be that guy, but this is not Oberon. Like, I know what Oberon is, and this is not it. She's like, oh, okay, I'm so sorry. We'll get it fixed. Takes it back, comes back with the same exact beer. Like, not the same beer, but like it's clearly like it's not Oberon again. It says like we double and triple checked it this time, like blah blah. I'm like, okay, you set up the taps wrong then or something. Like I don't know what this is. It's too light, it's too clear, and it doesn't taste like oranges. So I don't know what to tell you. I drank I wasn't gonna send it back again because it's not worth it at that point. But so that was a little interesting thing, which you drinking Oberon Dayton reminded me of. And then last weekend, Alyssa and I went camping at Itasca State Park, which is the headwaters of the Mississippi River. And it's about as whelming as you would expect. Because every river starts at a creek somewhere. So it's just a lake. I think it's like spring fed or something. And it flows north. It actually starts flowing north and then kind of curves around into another lake. It is kind of interesting. There's like a museum, I say a museum, it's like a one-room cabin that they turn into a museum of like the homesteaders.
There's one plaque.
There's the four walls, right? And like some stuff. So it was really interesting, the history of like that area and like how people settled there and survived up there and stuff. It was a cool state park. Yeah, I definitely go again. There's a really cool like biking loop that we didn't get the chance to do because it was raining. But definitely would go back up there and there's a site of the formerly largest white pine tree in Minnesota. It has
Gotta
since
see
been
that.
topped. I think white pine and red pine, and both were topped. So
wow,
you can see
pretty underwhelming then.
Damn,
white pine
the tree's been topped.
the largest.
The second tallest tree in Minnesota.
How big was it compared to the fallen giant that we saw?
We didn't stop to see it.
Oh,
unfortunately, so I don't know.
Why would you stop to see the second tallest tree?
Yeah, like
what are we doing? Who's got time for that?
Yeah. So, other than that, I made the mistake of biking to work yesterday and some nice heat.
I saw that in Strava, dude.
It was a lot of fun. I got a notification on my watch off after my commute in that said, "Congrats, you are now 33% more acclimated to the heat." And I was like, "Doesn't feel it." Could have fooled me.
What metrics are you using Strava for that? You check my blood pressure here?
Yeah, so I don't know, but other than that, let's see. Went to a concert Tuesday. Saw the Blue Stones for the third time. I wore different headphones or earplugs this time, and they were like the foam ones, and they were having technical difficulties, and I don't know if that's it. It didn't sound that great, and I don't know which aspect was to blame for that. It was still a fun concert, but the sound was less than ideal. The opener, their guitar went out for like a song and a half, which was okay because it was a 3-piece band and the other 2 pieces were both drums. So it was pretty fun to watch that. But she was pissed. Their set ended and she just put her guitar down and walked off. Didn't say anything. It was. I can't say I blame her, but
that's rough.
They put on a good show regardless, I thought. And yeah, Blue Stones did a great job as they always do. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
Fun times.
I'm going to go next because I need to bitch and whine a little bit, as I often like to do. So I started working again. I'm working at the same place I worked at when I was in Minneapolis last time with my family friend who works in health insurance stuff, which is totally fine. But I forgot how much I fucking hate commuting. Like, Jesus Christ. Especially when it's this hot. I think there's a lot of factors coming at me right now.
Does your AC still not work in your car?
Well, no, because I got fixed. Remember when my car broke down in Wisconsin? It was the AC compressor that broke.
Oh,
But it's like 95 degrees out, so like it's not doing a whole lot.
right.
And the commute there is fine. It's like 30 minutes on the highway, whatever. But the way home today, so like I got lunch with my friend. So I was coming home a little bit later than usual, but it was still only like 2:30-ish. And so I was coming from Chanhassen, so it's normally like a 40-minute drive. It took me an hour because I was in like bumper traffic for all of it. And I don't know where this traffic is coming from. I mean, there was a crash, I think, but like I was losing my mind in my car, just like sweating. You're stuck in traffic, just want to get home. And I was just like, it's fucking 2:30 on a Thursday. Like, what are these fucking people doing?
You're one of them.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess.
What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
I'm trying to get home from work.
That's probably what they're doing too.
Like, Joseph, you know when you get out of 35W and you have to like turn left on Broadway?
Mm-hmm.
It took me 4 cycles of the light to turn left. It's just like, what the fuck
Do you
is
not
going
pull
on?
out into the intersection?
There was so many people that like one person
Oh.
would go, because there's no green arrow for some reason. There's a spot on the light for a green arrow and they never use it. I'm like, give us the fucking green arrow. Just lose my mind. But yesterday it was the same story. I was trying to get home, took forever, bumped up, and somebody fucking hit me from behind yesterday.
Oh, damn.
Thankfully, well, okay, so it was clearly a crash up on the highway, so that's why everyone was slow. And one of the people at the crash who had like, there was like a sign to like move traffic over. And so it was a Department of Transportation truck that was hauling the sign in a trailer. And he got behind me, and he was the one that hit me. So it was a Minnesota Department of Transportation truck, and it was just like a little bump. And I'm just like, I really don't want to fucking stop and like deal with all this shit. And also, I was in the left lane. I'm like, it's gonna be hard to like pull over. So I'm like, I'm just gonna pray that nothing happens. Like I can pray there's no damage. And he got the fuck off the highway as soon as possible.
He probably lost his job.
Oh, if he reported it, you know. And that's something like, I don't want to make someone lose their job. It was probably an accident. I don't know if he got hit from behind and it was like a chain effect, you know. But then the rest of the drive, I'm sweating. I'm like, God, there better not be any fucking damage. And then I got him looked and it was fine. So thank God for that. But I'm just like, I've been back at work for 2 goddamn days. I've had just 2 nightmarish, you know, experiences getting to home on the highway.
I think it might be an indication for the rest of the commutes, Jacob.
I know, but a lot of it is the heat, man. Like it being like 95 degrees, really, and the sun just like beating down on it. Like it's not a fan. But I'm working from home tomorrow. So the Taylor Swift concert, the first one is tomorrow, and I'm like, it's gonna be crazy even in the afternoon. I feel like people are trying to get into the city, so I'm just gonna stay home and not worry about it. And it should cool down next week as well. But thankfully, I'll be able to work from home pretty much whenever I want to. So I'll probably be kind of flexible with that. But man, I haven't had like a solid commute since I last worked at this job. And I don't remember hating it that much, but now that I'm work from home for so long, I'm just like, fuck this shit, man. Like it's a whole hour out of my day I'm losing just fucking driving in the heat. Like it sucks.
Well, it's an hour each way, right?
Well, half hour each way. Today it was half hour and then an hour because of the
I
bad
see,
stuff.
gotcha.
But
Still, that sucks.
yeah, not a fan. So yeah, that's but I'm glad I'm getting paid again and I have income. That's a bonus.
Usually pretty nice.
Money
Literally
is a
benefit.
bonus.
I guess I can pay rent and get food or whatever.
More wisdom from Jacob.
So I can
Later.
survive.
Stay tuned.
But yeah, I'm trying to get I'm still trying to get my schedule fully kind of sorted because it feels like I have like no free time except for like Fridays and Saturdays, but it is what it is. Gub, how you doing? How have you been beating the heat?
I don't know, man. Got my mountain bike out finally this season. Went with some a friend of the podcast friends. He's now in Europe, so I've been poaching them, hanging out with them. Did a pool party, but of course it rained the one day, and like the 2 hours it rained, the whole like 3 weeks was during the pool party. But
Of course.
it was still fun. Yeah. Smoke and heat's been a little rough, but when I do go in, my commute is 7 minutes on a bike, so it's not too bad.
All right, you're done talking. Dayton, is your turn.
Yeah, so I've been commuting into work too on my bike, and it takes me about 6 minutes. So
Yes.
God damn it.
I wish that I were joking too, but I'm not.
No.
It's actually the
Well, that's
truth.
like when I was in Indiana, my commute was 5 minutes. Like it was really
Yeah.
nice. But anyway, it is what it is.
Yeah, I did a really long gravel ride the other day. Just kind of went in the middle of fucking nowhere, and that was awesome. Been enjoying that, but yeah, just kind of gonna wait out this heat. I was supposed to go camping this weekend, but we got more rain coming. But we're in a drought, so probably could use it, as an old person would say. So
Yeah,
I think I said that
some
last
Midwesterner
time.
would say, we really
I'm
need
pretty
that
sure I
rain.
said that last time. Yeah, but we do need it, guys. It's pretty
Yeah.
bad. So
Yeah.
yeah, it might get canceled. I was gonna do some biking up in Cuyuna, but that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it'd be a bad idea to get the hell out of Dodge this weekend because the city is going to be absolute madhouse.
Yeah, I saw that they increased the transit windows so that people could get back from the concert. Like the trains and the buses are running longer, and the mayor's been tweeting about it. It's like, it's a fucking concert. How is this?
Gabe, it's different.
I know it's Taylor
massive.
Swift, guys. Guys, I know who it is. It's just crazy to me that like this much like effort, like the government needs to step in and be like, okay, hold on, guys.
But that's been for pretty much every city that she's.
No, I know.
performed
It's just
in, you
it's
know?
insane.
Well, yeah, Joseph and Alyssa are going on Saturday.
Mhm.
Oh, all right, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How
I'm
much were the
curious
tickets?
what-
Yeah, I was gonna say, aren't the tickets like wicked expensive?
Yeah. We paid about $150 per ticket.
Oh wait,
Honestly, that's not as bad as I was going to be.
I
And
thought
that
that on like
is-
the low end they were like $2K a piece.
Yeah, I thought
Yeah.
so too.
Yeah.
Where are you seated? Are you like 10 miles away from her? Or?
Actually, no, we got pretty decent seats, I would say. So it's like maybe a 45-degree angle off from center stage,
Huh?
and then like the bottom section of the upper deck. So it's
It's
at
not
the
nosebleeds.
yeah. So and I mean it's US Bank Stadium, so it's a football stadium,
Mhm.
and it's made so that you can see the entire field from pretty much every seat. They design them. It's designed pretty well. So from what I've heard, it's like there's no bad seat at the in the stadium.
Hopefully it's fun. That'd be cool.
Yeah, just make sure you stay hydrated and get some food because it's going to be a long day.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
It'll be
Dave,
fun.
what about you? What's going on over there in good old Michigan?
Commuting by bike.
Yeah, commuting by bike. I did a 5K race last weekend.
Mm.
Wasn't very big.
You didn't do just a 5K race. You were running through fucking mud pits.
Yeah, it was like an obstacle 5K race.
Was that like a Tough Mudder?
No, it wasn't a Tough Mudder. It's a local event. So it's like half of the race was like trail running, where you actually had to like jump over like trees and stuff like that, and then the other half was just on like prairie, like that had been mowed, and then amidst all of that were different obstacles. So there were like hay bales and hills, like mounds of dirt that you had to climb, and like foam like pads that you had to like vault over, and then at the very end,
That's fun.
the very end was the biggest dirt mound. It was probably like 20 feet tall, maybe I'm exaggerating, maybe like 15 feet tall. And you know, on either end they dug out a trench and they filled it with water. So you had to literally at the end, when you're just gassed, you have to run through about like, I don't know, 20 to 30 feet worth of water that's like literally like waist deep or higher, climb up this hill, this mound, and then go down the other end and do the exact same thing. And then it's like, I don't know, like 100 yards to the finish or 50 yards to the finish or something. But yeah, it was pretty fun. None of my friends wanted to do it with me or could do it with me, so I just went there alone, and I ended up meeting like a whole bunch of people there. Really
Nice.
cool people. I ended up doing just about what I thought I was going to be able to do, given my current current speed, I guess you could say. Because
I was going to ask what your time was, and you're explaining the event. I'm like, it's irrelevant. I have no reference for a obstacle course 5K.
Yeah. I mean, so I ran 21:45.
That's pretty fucking good.
And
That's pretty fucking good.
That's really good.
the fastest time that somebody got on it, I think, was like 17 or maybe it was
Jesus
18.
Christ.
That
That is insane.
yeah, it was like a 14-year-old. or something like that.
Just vaulted over the mud pit. Didn't
my
even
God.
like deal with that.
Yeah, yeah, but
That's
it was cool because
nuts. Wow.
they gave out prizes for like your like age group finishers too. So like
Mm-hmm.
they gave out the prizes that they had were from a local potter, and then they made like a whole bunch of different things, and like the first and the second place in your age group got something. So I ended up getting something because I placed second.
Nice.
So that was
Very
pretty cool. And then same day I went out and rode my mountain bike because it'll be like the last time I'll be able to like ride my mountain bike until like mid-July. So what else? I feel like that's probably all.
Okay. Very cool. Man, yeah, that race sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, let's get to our topic this week. It's a Joseph topic. So Joseph, why don't you intro for us?
All right. So, on our drive up to Itasca, Alyssa and I were talking, and she brought up an interesting thing that I hadn't really thought of. But she was saying how, like, within teaching, right, there's she was talking about like some of her like personal styles of teaching and stuff, and mentioned that like one of her co-teachers, or not co-teachers, but like co-workers rather. Co-teaching is different. Um, one of her coworkers does not say please and thank you to her students, whereas Alyssa is that's a big thing that she does. It's like would rather say, could you please go and do this versus like go and do this. And it's kind of like, it's part of it is a generational thing, part of it is like an outlook on what teaching is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that's like kind of debated within teaching, and how that's not really something you would think about if you're not a teacher, because I mean, unless you're like a manager, most people aren't or a parent, they're not an authority figure that strongly as you are as a teacher, right?
Mm-hmm.
But also, you're just a person as a teacher. Like you're their teacher, but you're still a human being, and you want to humanize yourself. So, like saying please to a student is more likely to get them to do something, because I know when someone asks me to do something, please, I'm more likely to.
Mm-hmm.
But on the flip side, there are teachers that believe that you are the authority. It is not a request. If I tell you to do something, you need to respect that and do that. That is this relationship that we have. Is I am the authority and you are the kid, whatever.
Yeah.
And so she had mentioned that to her therapist, who brought up that how interesting that is, because that's not something she would have thought of, and how there's kind of a debate on whether a therapist would offer tissues to the person, when they're crying, and how, most people would just see that as a nice gesture. But in a therapy session, it's a little, again, different dynamic, and that's kind of saying like you need to clean yourself up and make yourself present. Like crying
Mm.
is a bad thing, and you need to be presentable right now.
Mm.
And so there are people who don't hand tissues out or offer tissues. They'll have them available, but they're not going to hand them out and say like, here, use this, because you're going through an emotional response clearly, and like it doesn't matter whether you're presentable or not, because you want to be vulnerable with this person, right? That's kind of one of the ideas. And I thought that was really interesting how there's like these like ethical debates within professions that really aren't talked about and aren't discussed outside of that profession, and that's not something you would really know until you dive into that. Um, and so like obviously I offered not my personal examples. I've come across some, but I don't know if you guys have like heard of any or have any in your personal lives, and I don't know, I think it could be interesting to discuss some of them. Um, yeah, so I guess I can kind of go with the one I've thought of.
Go for it.
Whereas like as a bike mechanic, right? You want to do your best to fix the bicycle given to you, right? But at the same time, you have to work with the person whose bike it is. And particularly with older bikes, there's that balance of preserving the older components versus just slapping on a brand new derailleur, brand new shifters, calling it a day, rather than, trying to make what they have work. Because some people, they just want to ride a bike, they don't really care. And some people are like me personally, I have an older bike and I want to try to keep the components I have on it running as long as possible because I think that adds value to that bicycle. And at the same time, I don't want to spend money on new components on that, and other people might not. And some people, we were talking about it with a coworker. Like, there's different brands of bicycle chains, right? Different brands make their own chains, and they're all technically compatible, right? A 9-speed chain made by SRAM is going to work on any 9-speed drivetrain. However, it's going to work best with SRAM. And so SRAM makes cheaper chains than Shimano does. Shimano they just make more expensive ones. And on an older bike, do you put the Shimano chain that's going to work 6%, if that, better? 5% maybe, whatever, versus, and save them $30? Is $30 really worth it in the grand scheme of things? To the person who's riding a 15-year-old bike, they're probably not willing to drop, hundreds of dollars at every turn. So, obviously you want to get the bike in the best shape possible, but at what cost, right? And where do you draw that line of making the perfect bicycle versus keeping what they have? I guess it's kind of like was it Theseus ship?
Yep.
Kind of debate. But yeah. So that's something that I've kind of encountered recently that I never really thought about.
I mean, that's interesting that you brought up the fact that you're trying to preserve your old bike. And meanwhile, I'm literally ripping everything off of my old bike and replacing it with new shit. It's just, that's like a perfect example of it that I hadn't really even thought about.
Yeah, like a lot of that comes down to the end user, though, right? Like, as long as you give them the right options of, like, if you make that relationship with the customer, or like, I guess, Dayton, you don't really have like you're talking to yourself. But
I'm talking to myself. I'm steering my own ship, baby.
Yeah, you're like, I don't fucking care. I want to keep the frame and I want to make everything else different. But
yep.
I mean, I'm sure you could ask, 100 customers and you'd get it split,
Right. Well, and I think that's the thing with these examples that don't involve authority figures. I think when it's more of a people are on the same level, like communication is key, right? So if you have a customer, Josie, you're working with, like, ideally you'd be able to communicate the options to this person and they can make the decision because at the end of the day it's their bike, right? Like, what do they care about more, performance or authenticity, right? I was thinking the same with kind of the therapist example of, like, in a perfect world, let's say you're in a session and you start crying and the therapist offers you tissues like really fast. Ideally, if it's a good relationship, next time you can be like, hey, when you did that, it made me feel this way. And I prefer if you did a different thing next time, right? I think it's trickier when we introduce authority figures, which we can get into later. But yeah, I think for the bike thing, it just, like Gabe said, ideally you could be able to communicate to the person, but they might also just not care, right? Like, like, I know for me, like, with a lot of the stuff I own, I just want it to work and I don't really care how you do it. Like, I don't know a lot about cars, so I bring my car to the shop and I'm just like, make it good. Like, do what you got to do. And
well, what does that mean? People say that and it's like, I just want it to ride it. I'm like, well, you can ride a bike whether it shifts or not. You can still ride the damn bike. Like,
yeah, I guess to be more clear, it's like I want the cheapest option that'll cause me the least amount of problems, if that makes sense. Like, when they ask me what kind of oil do I want, I'm like, I don't know, whatever the fucking cheap one is, that'll be fine. Like,
but that's your preference, though, right?
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. Some people are like that with certain things, like me. Like, but if they care a lot about, they'll probably be asking you questions too, of like, hey, what are you gonna do about this?
Yeah, I mean, like, when I did computer repair stuff, I would always try and give 2 options, like here, and 2 different price points. Partly because that does usually sell more when you give 2 options, especially if you add a premium. Like, people little subconsciously like want to get one step up, but not like the most expensive thing. But
Right.
yeah, I feel like as long as you're communicating, giving options, and tailoring to what I mean, the relationship is they give you money, right?
Yeah.
So like, yeah, there is some ethics behind it, but also it's like I would almost say they kind of have the end all authority because they're the ones giving you the money
Right.
and you're
Yeah.
providing the service. So
Yeah, ultimately I do what they want, you know.
right,
They
Right.
can take my advice
and they could they
and
could tell
they
you to
can
fuck
tell me
off,
to
and
yeah.
yeah,
We've had people like that where it's like, you know, I have this old bike and I want to put zero money into this. How do I fix this? It's like I don't know, you buy a new part. Like that thing is broken.
mhm.
We literally this literally happened the other day and we were like, "All right, so we just taped it together." Like it was the screw was stripped that clamped the shifter to the bar. So we're like, "Fuck it. We'll just take some electrical tape because you don't want to spend any money on it."
And a screw is literally like free.
Well, no, those screws we just that's not something that we have.
Oh,
That
okay.
kind of stuff. If we had it, yeah, but that's I don't know, it's an older Dura Ace shifter or
Okay.
brake. So it was like I don't we could dig through our parts bins for 2 hours for this bike that we were pretty convinced was stolen. So that's the other thing is people bring in stolen bikes sometimes. It's like I don't
Yeah.
want to work on this, but I
Uh-huh.
don't want it in the shop either.
Yeah.
But
Well, and the other thing was Gabe, you're saying like the person who's paying kind of has the authority, which I mostly agree with. But again, that's kind of an ideal or in a case where the business's prerogative is to help the customer. Some business prerogatives are just going to be to make the most money as possible, right? So if I go to a different car shop and I'm like, hey, just do the thing that makes it work, they might charge me the highest option without me knowing, and then I pay. I'm like, I'm not an expert, so I assume that this might be what it costs, and then I just pay and get out there, right? So like, I think
Right.
there's dual agendas, right? There's the agenda of the customer and the agenda of the business, and that
I
hopefully
mean, you
they're on
can
the same
still
page.
tell them
But
to fuck off though. Like
that's true. But if I
if
feel like I don't have not enough knowledge, I might just
I
accept.
Okay, but if you
That's
see
me. That's my personality.
synthetic, if you see full synthetic on your oil change, you're like, nah, man,
Yeah.
I want that shit out of the ground. Then
right.
Yeah, but I also hate confrontation dating, so I might just be like, oh,
It's
well.
it's like
All
the
right.
classic, like you get a fucking combo at McDonald's and they're like, do you want a medium or a large? Like they ask the question so that you're getting upgraded. You say fucking small. Like you know,
Yep,
you just
exactly.
need to know a little bit, or just go on Google Maps and be like, they upsell and it's twice as expensive as every other place mechanic in town.
Right.
I'm gonna go with the other one. You
Right.
know.
Can I give my one that I brought, Joseph, before you
certainly
do
go
one?
for
So
it.
I was thinking about this thing about like I'm sure grad school has some stuff that I could, do around this. And a perfect example one I thought of is so when you're a PhD student, at least in my experience, my program, you have to take what's called a preliminary exam or a prelim, which you usually take it around your third year of your PhD. And before you pass it, you're called, what is it? I'm
Garbage.
blanking. Yeah, you're a piece of shit. Maybe just like a student. I'm blank. I wish I remembered the terminology. But then after you pass it, you're a candidate. It's basically like you take this test 3 years in, and you get form a committee, and they basically say like, "Yep, you're good to finish your degree. We believe in you." And if you fail it, they're kind of like, "You can take it again, or we can just force you to drop out because we don't think this is going to go anywhere." And a lot of different programs have different ideas. Like the program I was in is your committee gives you like a test essentially, and you take the test, and then they ask questions about it. Other programs have you write a grant proposal, sometimes for your own project or for like a fake project, just to show that you can do that. All sorts of things. But typically, your committee is 4 to 5 people, and one of them is your boss, your PI, right? And one thing that I heard is for some people, and he didn't really do this with me, but also I dropped down to masters before this happened. But my PI didn't want to vote when it was time to vote if the student should pass or not because he felt it was biased, which is fine. But if you have 5 people in the committee and he's one of them, if there's a split decision, who's going to make the final call, and so I don't know. That was interesting that he felt that because he's responsible for you and he's in charge of your research and all that stuff, he feels like, oh, I'm biased. I shouldn't vote because I'm probably going to say yes no matter what, so you should basically, to me, it's like you should impress these other professors who know less to prove that you're ready, right? Which I get, but also in a perfect world, your PI shouldn't allow you to take your prelim until they think you're ready.
Mm-hmm.
So it is kind of a yes no matter what. But that being said, I had a friend who failed the first prelim and her PI was like, oh, you're not ready. And so I was like, why'd you make her take it? Yeah. So all this is saying, like, it really comes down to your own professor, which I think is shitty. Like there are guidelines for each program of what the best practices are, but in the day, you're kind of at the behest of your boss. And they're the authority figure in that situation because they can choose if you're staying or going in the program. But I'm just curious if you guys have any thoughts on like bias in a setting like that, or just in any setting where there's an authority figure who has to like make a decision for you. Are they biased? Does that matter? I don't know, stuff like that.
I don't think it matters. Like they're on that committee for a reason,
mm-hmm.
and it's like you get a vote, use it.
Right.
Is your PI always on the committee?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they're required.
I feel like playing devil's advocate, it's almost like they know the most about you, so they would have the most information to vote. I understand that, he's saying these other professors know less, so therefore their vote could have more value. But I feel like his vote has more value because he knows all the intricacies of your life and your work, and if like it's good or not,
Yeah, they would know. Your PI theoretically would know the best if you are in fact ready or not.
Mm-hmm.
Like all these people get to see is one presentation or maybe a grant you wrote or a test you took.
Right. They don't know who you are.
They don't know who you are. They don't know your day-to-day work ethic and all that stuff. Yeah, I tend to agree with you, Gabe. And like I said, they shouldn't even let you take this test unless they think you're ready. So like the facts I'm also just still seeing my friend failed her first time. It's like, why'd you have her take it if you thought she was not ready to take it? Like it's just so, I don't know.
Well, and also what's with these hardos that like are like gatekeeping this like so hard, right? Like
I know.
I feel like if you make it into a PhD program and your PI is like, yeah, like everything's going all right, then like it like that should be enough. Like
yeah,
I understand like maybe like once you get done with like your project, then like yeah, like you need to have some like
defend it.
Yeah, you need to actually do that. But like I don't know.
The whole concept of a prelim is pretty weird. I mean, and yeah, this comes in. I don't want to get into a whole rant about grad school in this episode, but like this leads into like a bigger issue of just mentorship in general, and also the acceptance process, right? Like I got accepted with like no one was concerned. Like they saw my resume and my stuff from tech. They're like, oh yeah, you'll be good at grad school, and I was terrible. I was bad and I ended up dropping out. I was not having a good time, and like. In hindsight, I'm like, yeah, they should have vetted me way more. But they were just like, oh, he's smart, quote unquote smart, so he'll succeed. And it's like that's not the qualities you should be looking for.
But you gave him money, Jacob.
Yeah.
No, they paid me. I didn't pay a cent of grad school. I got a stipend. And some of you do have to, Gabe. So
I didn't say like, is that how it is for everybody though?
No, it's very like I know our friend Emily had to pay and stuff like that. Like it depends on the school, depends on the program also. But like for my situation, they were paying me to work and be there, right? And that, I mean, I personally think that PIs have too much power over your future. Like one person gets to decide if you're going to get your degree, and if they suck, you're kind of screwed. Like you have some options to switch labs or do a couple things, but like if your one person sucks and then you go to their boss and they also suck, like what are you supposed to do? Like there's no like safety net. So yeah, it just makes me uncomfortable when you have an authority figure with that much power, and it's just I guess
it's just I'm trying to relate this to like my day to day, and I have a boss. Most people have bosses, unless you're your own boss and you're a girl boss or a boss bitch or whatever. But I think obviously there's a power dynamic there as well, but I think the difference that I'm hearing is, I think there are bosses out there that will take away like promotions or can bar you from certain like movement because they do have the strongest opinion on you, even like if you're trying to move internally or whatnot.
Right.
But there's always the option to leave,
Yeah, just go
which
to a different job, right?
isn't perfect. Like it's not like, oh, just leave your job, just quit your job. You know,
Yeah.
that's not
Just go to a
not the
different PhD program. Just
yeah,
transfer.
but that's what I was getting at is when you do that with like academia, it's a little bit trickier because it's not like you can just get up and leave and go to another, you know, professor in a different university and not lose any progress, you know.
Right.
So
Yeah, you're going to lose progress. Like,
right.
'cause
It just seems like they have more power over like what a standard like corporate boss would have. It. I would argue they even have quite a bit of power over you.
right.
But you're kind of more stuck in that way.
Right. Like imagine like an
school.
undergrad, if before we graduated there was one person that's like has to decide if you're actually going to finish or not. Like that's like an undergrad. I like the undergrad. It's like you have your to-do list. If you get the to-do list done, you're out of here, right? Like there's a set credits you have to complete, and that's it. For grad school, it's like you have your credits, but also like this one person has to say you're good to go.
Mhm.
And it's like if they hate you, which that also happens sometimes, it's like you might never finish. And so yeah, it's a very. I just wish people talked about grad school more because it's like a fucking wild place. No, it's kind of a black box. People go in and some people get degrees, some people leave. And yeah, it's crazy. But
So what if we reframe the question into thinking about, so the example that I'm thinking about is one that all of us have gone through and done. And
Okay.
what if it's things that don't have a definite right answer and people have their own opinions on it, and although one may be, you know, better, quote unquote better than like the others, all of them are for all intents and purposes the same, right?
it's all subjective.
Yeah.
Right. So the thing
And I
that
think that is the root of the question that I presented.
yeah, so the example that I'm thinking of right now is when you're applying thermal paste onto a processor.
You a dot or a line?
It's just interesting because like yeah, like you can do tests to determine which one is better, but like does it actually matter if one has like 10% more coverage than the other? Like no, like come on, like nobody's gonna notice that. And I don't know, like that's the only like example that I can bring to the table right now is thermal paste spreading procedures.
Well, yeah, that's just again comes out how much does the person care, right? For me, I'm like, what's the easiest way that works? All right, that's what I'm doing because I'm trying to reduce hassle.
Right.
Some other person might be like, I need to get every ounce of performance out of my PC. I need to get maximum heat transfer. You know, and they will look at that. They want that 2% difference.
Can you use that voice for the rest of the episode, please? I think,
and now, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like the conversations, your examples of ethical questions. I don't have a whole lot at my job. I fix computers at a very base level. Maybe, you know, that's on the operating system level or the networking level or, you know, whatever. There really isn't a lot of I'm not really harming anyone. Or I feel like there's just not a lot of ethics for it, but there's a ton of heated opinions in IT.
Like
Because
what about like
there's
naming conventions? Like there's got to be tons.
No, so okay, let me get you through an IT interview, all right? You show up and they're like, "What type of products do you use?" And like I know a lot of Cisco stuff, so like, "Oh, I like Cisco," and like, you know, I have certification in Cisco. I'm like, yeah, we're a Aruba shop, so that's what we use." And it's like, it's not wrong. It's just there's just different standards, and like, you know, this job I've been at for, I'm getting close to a year. Totally different suite of solutions and ways to do it, and then I kind of fit in like my opinions when I see fit, but it's like it's just so varied because there is no wrong answer and there's so many different ways to do it. But even like any conversation or any meeting that I have, for fun. There's always jabs at certain products. It's like, oh, Emacs. No one uses that anymore. That sucks. Like that happens every single day.
Yeah.
So there are some wrong answers, but there's
Yeah.
some just some debate about a lot of
But
solutions.
I mean, there's always that debate with any sort of troubleshooting of how far to the root do you dig versus resolving the symptom, right? Because every problem, there's the symptoms you can resolve. I'm putting my hand up on mic. The symptoms you can resolve, but also the root cause. And can you cover up the symptoms so that the end user doesn't notice? Or do you spend hours upon hours digging to the root cause and solving that for marginally the same result, you know?
Mhm.
And I don't know how much you come into but I remember that being something I had to deal with in my job,
Yeah.
where it's like, how much time am I willing to put into this to solve versus cure, right?
Yeah, almost every single interview I've ever had, even internships, they give me almost always there's an example problem, and they want to just see how I think through problems. And I think there is a popular way to go about it, especially like with networking. I will not bore you with the details, but I think there's a procedure or like a thought process that they like to see, or at least they want to see that you are thinking through it in a relatively clear way. Fuck, where was I going with this? Oh, I think, with issues like an actual work and stuff that does come up, there's a lot of the problem of, okay, do we band-aid this or do we solve this forever? Automation is, I don't know if you guys have heard of this thing called automation, but a lot of people are doing it right now. And there's always questions of, do we spend 2 days to automate it forever? Or do we hope this is a one-off because
Right.
they're using XYZ product and patch it and then hope it doesn't come back?
Right. That's
that
even
comes
pre-automation. That's just coding. That's just writing code for anything. It's like, okay, do I make it so it works one time, or do I need to make it nice so it'll work every time?
Right. Yeah. A lot of that is like the DevOps side of things, but yeah, that comes up a lot. And I don't know if that's like an ethical thing. I think a lot of that comes down to like how much time does that person have, myself included. Sometimes like I'll just fix it for this week and we'll deal with it if it comes back. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think my biggest pet peeve with any of these arguments we're talking about is when one person in the argument or in the system we're talking about, when their rationale for what they do is just, that's how I did it, or that's the first thing I learned, so I have never questioned it, you know? And there's some aspect of like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it in there, which I do generally tend to agree with. But like, I just hate when people aren't open to new ways of thinking, or they're just like, this worked for me. And it's like, yeah, but you're 50 and I'm 25, and the world has changed in that time, so maybe we should explore some new options here.
I think that
So,
happens
yeah,
a lot
yeah.
in STEM. I think that happens a lot. Every place, I say every place. The internships and the full-time jobs that I've worked, there's always one person who may be extremely knowledgeable in a subject and almost always finds a solution. But if you come up with a solution that isn't kosher with how they go about it, it can become a point of contention, and that can get frustrating.
Right.
But at least they're like my current place, they're very open, which is awesome. Like if someone comes up with a solution and they're like, oh, I've heard this is good, you can spend some time to like try it out and at least like
Right.
fight for that. But that's definitely a luxury that I don't think every job has, because there will be some people who are like, I've been here 10 years. This is how I do syntax, so you're gonna fucking do it this way, and that's
Right.
how it is. But
Right.
yeah, it can get super frustrating for sure.
Yeah. Well, I think the fact that we're just even talking about this shows that people do think about these things. Like, going back to like Alyssa's example with teaching, like, we were here to ask her, but like, did she do please and thank yous because her mentor did that and she just copied it, or did she just do it naturally because that's the kind of person she is, or did she do it and then not realize it was people did things differently until she had someone else, and then she thought about it and decided that's what you wanted to do. Like, it's all about education at the end of the day, right? It's like learning about yourself and learning about what you like and dislike. And I think as long as you're somewhat questioning or at least looking at other people, I think you're in a good spot.
I can't answer exactly, but I know it was a conscious decision that she came to and was like, I want to do this. And she's also had, I mean, similar debate, but instead of going by Miss Ludens, switching to Miss Alyssa, and doing that just because, again, you know, I know I didn't feel comfortable calling a quote adult by their first name until college. Like even still, my friends' parents, it feels really weird calling them by their first names. But they're just people, man. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I think that really helped from my professors being like, I'm just a guy. You can call me my first name. I don't give a shit. You know, and like kind of realizing like they're a quote unquote adult, but I'm getting to that point where I am too. And so kind of rethinking that relationship you have with other people. And I think, because I know my nieces and nephews, they have teachers and, you know, I don't know, mentors, but like daycare and that sort of stuff where it's, Mr. or Mrs. and then their first name. I know that's becoming more common, especially in younger kids. Usually first names are easier to pronounce. I know Joseph is a lot easier to say than DeGrandchamp, and DeGrandchamp isn't even that bad. It's just a little long. Like,
Right.
God damn it. Anyway, Dayton, you're a bastard. Yeah, you put that one in my fucking birthday gift. And
You've had a couple good quotes lately. I think going back to kind of what you were saying, Jacob, there's a fine line between standards and innovation. I think it makes sense to have standards so that everybody's on the same page.
Right.
Like you were saying, communication, like how you communicate, documentation, which sounds super boring, but if it's standardized, it makes it way easier to find. And standardization of how you would go about solving a problem is super important. But at the same time, I don't think it can remain static because times are changing, especially like in my field, there's new products come out every fucking day of the week and they claim to be better or whatever. And I think as long as you're open to that and open to the change, it's important. But I think you need to have a baseline of standards, but you have to be questioning it and you have to be open to questioning it. Like, why are we doing this fucking backwards way when it could be easier if we do it this way, Right. If you're at a place where they're like, this is how I do it and this is how it's always going to be, it's gonna fucking be miserable. Like that's just not a good culture, like really.
Right. Well, it also comes out to how much, like, what degree of control you have. Like, if your boss is gonna mandate, like, if Alyssa's boss is like, no, everyone's going by their last name no matter what, it's like, well, then she's got to do that, right? Even if she feels differently, right? Mm-hmm. But ideally, again, bring it up again, like communication. If everyone can communicate how they feel and why they feel it, we can probably come to an agreement or some sort of solution. But that often is not the case, unfortunately.
Well, and I would also add, like, rationally, like, communicate those things, because a lot of times, like, people communicate those things, but they escalate it.
Yeah.
Like, way harder. Way harder. Way harder than they need to, when it's like, it's just a conversation. You don't need to start yelling at me right now.
Right.
We can just
and also, like, as much as I'd love to believe that logical arguments work with everyone, they just fucking don't with some people, which is incredibly frustrating. And also, there's just sometimes arguments you just can't win ever because of the nature of it. But hopefully, in a professional environment, you'd be able to have some sort of rational conversation.
Right.
But you would hope.
Yeah.
It's funny. I have this coworker. I love her. She's super nice. She's been around forever, like around this place for like 30 plus years, long time. And anytime there's some change, she'll immediately push back on it. But she's so aware that she's just like being that person. She's like, I just don't like change. I know it. Like, ask me again in a week. It's the sweetest lady.
That's funny.
So funny.
Yeah. Well, and like, it also, I think there are ways to bring up things that remain true to kind of the core idea. Like, as an example, like when I was in my lab, my boss wanted like us to be as sustainable as possible, which like, yeah, I agree with that. Like, we should not be polluting if we can. But one of the ways he wanted to do that was use glass pipettes for everything that we would like use and then like clean that, like wash them, clean them, and then like, you know, as opposed to disposable like plastic ones, you just open it, use it, throw it away, which is like way easier, right? And it's like, okay, so I want to be sustainable, but also like sometimes the ease of use is a big factor. Like, it doesn't matter if you have glass pipettes if no one's gonna fucking use them. It's like we need to have some sort of conversation here of how to make it work for both of us because that's not working and this isn't working. So, but if you come at it like, let's be more sustainable as opposed to like your thing is wrong and I don't like it, it's like that's not going to be helpful.
Mhm.
How you approach?
Right. Just any other ones you wanted to mention before we end here?
Trying to think. No, those were the. Oh, I guess, I mean, another interesting one that I hadn't thought of and kind of goes against my experience in school, that Alyssa had brought up was that she doesn't believe in rewarding her students with candy or food, which I remember when I was in fourth and fifth grade, because we had a same teacher, fourth and fifth grade. Um, they they would, you get a if you got an A on an exam or a test, you get a piece of candy, and if you got a 100%, they'd give you a Hershey bar, which worst incentive for me because I was like, fuck this. My dad liked it when I got 100% on tests because he'd get the candy bar,
Right.
whatever. But that has been through research, from my understanding at least, and what Alyssa has said is that that promotes the idea that food is to be earned and that it is not a right to have food.
Mm.
That you have to work to be able to get a treat or to be able to eat. And if you don't get that, if you don't work hard enough, then and the same thing with like a pizza party. If you have to earn it, then there's the possibility that you won't eat, and it's because your fault that you didn't work hard enough, and that it, you know, and
Yeah.
that is definitely not something I had considered or really thought about, and I thought that was very interesting.
I feel like that's a relatively recent idea though. Like even back to like the
Yeah.
1700s, like yeah, you did actually have to work to eat.
You didn't work hard enough to kill that deer, so you don't eat.
Or you didn't
Yeah.
you didn't harvest your wheat like tough shit.
Put in
but
a
for
full day's
child,
work.
It's a little different, right?
Yeah, and like
yes, but
yeah, I hear where she's coming from because like we still live in a capitalistic society. Like you do have to do something to make money in order to buy food, but like
Fourth graders aren't working.
They're not
in the
yeah,
mines anymore, right?
right. And also
Right.
like I personally like that because it kind of introduces the idea that society doesn't have to be that way, you know. And it's all she's not saying that directly to the kids that she not gives them candy, right?
Right, but it's more of the not that working does not provide food, but you don't have to work, like you don't have to earn food, like, and I think that's a very interesting and like just not thought about idea that a lot of teachers are pushing on these kids, not pushing on, but like inadvertently, those are messages that you're telling kids without realizing.
Yeah,
Been interesting.
that's parenting, and that's a whole topic, and none of us are qualified to speak on. Uh, but yeah, it is.
But we will anyway.
I'll watch like TikToks about gentle parenting and different teaching styles, and I'm just like, God, being a parent or a teacher sounds so stressful, and I don't want to do it. I don't want to fuck up a kid. Yeah. Any final thoughts? Any last ethical debates about bikes or anything like that? What color? I want to ask this earlier before I forget. For Gabe and Joseph, because you guys work in customer service places, did a customer ever want something that was just completely batshit insane or bad, and you're just like, nope, I guess I got to do it. Customer's always right.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Especially when they got a lot of money, I feel like it's just like I'm make it work. Like bosses are like they're willing to pay for it. It's all right.
Yeah.
There you go.
I have people that bring in like race bikes and are like, the the position is too far forward and down. I want to be more upright. It's like, buy a new bike. Like that's you're driving a Formula One car and you want it to be comfortable. Like it's not gonna happen. Like those are two different things.
Yeah.
Or like you said, you can tell them the perfect advice, and they be like, "No, you're wrong." It's like, all right, you totally didn't come here for my expertise, but you know,
you get the sunk cost fallacy, and you're like, I didn't make a mistake. I'm always right. Yeah.
I've had people come in with like Walmart specials, is what I'd call them, like $200 laptops, and like it's running slow. Fix it. It's like, dude. God himself couldn't do that.
I can only work with the tools provided, man. Ain't it?
Oh man. All right. Well, there we go. That's our episode for this week. Thanks everyone for watching. Again, you can follow us on social media. Links are in the description below. You can follow us on Twitch. You can find our show on every other Monday morning on YouTube and podcast services. But until next time, thanks for listening. Bye.
See you.
Bye.
Peace.